but I'm going to just sort of go through from top to bottom. I don't know whether you're on C's or Sped Track or Scripts for your software, but this is just the summary performance. I know it's on all of the available vendors, so I'm not too worried about that. The first 2 pages are just instructions on how to do this, but I will say this is to be done during the child's exiting year. Usually that's seniors. If you had a kid staying an extra year, was held back, I don't know if that happens that often in your all situation, but it is to be done during the child's exiting year. There is no time to say when you do it during their exiting year. Most folks wait till probably the spring when they're doing what I call the IEP-a-thon. So most of you will probably do it in the spring. I have some teachers do it in the fall. It doesn't matter. And a student can help with this. A student is allowed to see their own information, so they can help with gathering some of this and go through with them so they have an understanding of what's going on. Like I said, we recommend just do it during their exiting year, whenever that comes along. I think of it sort of as a placement package for a student with a disability. It's something they can take with them if they're going on to college, if they're going on to need help from an agency of any sort, like Arkansas Rehab or Arkansas Support Network, Friendship, whoever they might be going to ask for help. This is a great batch of information. It may not be something they want to take for a job interview. There might be too much information for a lot of job interviews, and the student might want to leave this home on the shelf. But we'll start at the beginning. First part is background information. Pardon me, this is the student's name, birth date, graduation, exit year, their address, current school, student's primary diagnosis, if they have a secondary diagnosis. You can nod your heads. I'm guessing most of yours are SLD. Some sort of specific learning disability, or maybe some OHI or something like that. So whatever their primary diagnosis is, their student's secondary if they have one, and when was that formally diagnosed? If you have that information, fine. I would say if not, sort of use a guesstimate, whatever your best scientific guess might be. If English is not the student's primary language, what services were provided? Did you provide ELL services for them? And date of most recent IEP, date summary is completed. The form is completed by probably whoever has the file, your title, school, and all that information. That's just basic demographics. Oh, and I didn't say at the beginning, a copy of this summary of performance goes to the student, and a copy does go in their file. So you'll make 2 copies of the summary of performance. Now, to make that a little more, along with the copy you give to the student, you also are going to check and include the most recent copy of assessment reports that you're attaching that diagnose and clearly identify the student's disability. That means if you have a psychological cognitive report, if you have a neuropsych, your ed psych report, RTI, whatever you have, medical, physical, whatever information in that file you have that helps support the diagnosis for the child, you make an extra copy of that and send that in the packet with the student. So yes, that means the student will take home the summary of performance with a set of all these assessments, even their transition assessments. So if you've given things like the ONET or some of the other transition assessments, whatever it is you give, send a copy of those too, because those can help with places like Arkansas Rehab, because they can already have an idea before they go through some of their assessing. But it does mean like I said, any assessment they'll have, you'll make an extra copy of and put that in the packet with the student. I think most schools put it in a sealed envelope, like a manila envelope or something, so it doesn't end up all over the house before the day is out. So that you want to make sure all that's there. Part 2, students' post-secondary goals. This is straight off the IEP, the 3 goals. After high school, Billy will be a welder. After high school, Billy will attend technical school to get a welding certificate. After high school, Billy will live in an apartment with a friend. Whatever those 3. After high school, Sally will be a nurse. After high school, Sally will go to U of A nursing school. After high school, Sally will live in the dorm. Just straight directly off the IEP, those 3 goals. Now there's a section that says after that, if employment's the primary goal, list the top 3 job interests. We've been in discussion with this for a few years, but here's the way it goes. If your student's going to some sort of post-secondary training program, whatever, whether it be something like Job Corps or a 2-year, 18-month or whatever technical school, or going off to college, they're going to a program, you don't need to list those top 3 interests. If you've said after high school, Billy will work at Walmart, after high school, Billy will get on the job training, and after high school, Billy will live in an apartment, then they want to know what the top 3 job interests that child might have. That's only if going directly employment. So at Walmart, what would it be? Cashier, stocking, whatever else they might have. So if the student's going directly into employment somewhere, what are their top 3 interests? If the student's going into any type of program, then we don't need to worry about those top 3 interests. Because hopefully that is their top interest and why they're going into that program. So that's pretty much right off the IEP. Here's where we get into sort of the meat of the stuff. This is the actual summary of performance. It says complete all that are relevant. I'm going to pretty much tell you everything's relevant, and you're going to want to complete it. What's the present level of performance? Whatever standard scores, whatever you have to help support that. And what essential accommodations are you using, whether it be assistive technology, modifications, whatever in high school that they're using to help them be successful. It lets you put that down in writing. Plus also, you can sometimes look at that and go, because hopefully you know when we go to college, we get accommodations, not modifications. Colleges will give things like large print, books on tape. I'm old enough to still call them books on tape. They'll give extended test time, but they're not going to give 2 out of 4 a multiple choice. They're not going to give a vocabulary sheet possibly, or a word list, or outline instead of essay. So that's why we ask you to put the essential accommodations and things you're using. So what's the present level of performance? Wherever they're at. If they're at grade level, whatever, I don't know if you all use STAR or whatever you might use to show what level they're at, that's what you're going to put. For reading, math, language, learning skills, whatever those are, do put what level they're at. Use whatever scores you might have and those kind of things, and then the essential accommodations. Now, even if your child is, say, math only, you're still going to want to put that they're on where they are in reading and everything else, based on what you know. And don't leave a thing blank, but under essential accommodations, if you do find, if you have, say, in language, the child is at reading at, or written expression is at level, and you have your data to show it, and you don't need accommodations, just put no accommodations needed, or something along that lines. NA sometimes is seen as not addressed. And I know folks would like to see it as addressed. So go through the academic. Then you have your cognitive areas: general ability and problem solving, executive functioning, communication levels. You get into social skills and behavior, where they're at present level, any accommodations you're doing, like if you had a child on a behavior plan or those sort of things. Some colleges will have sort of kind of a behavior plan. We had a former college-bound student that they met before every semester with all of his professors, the child, I should say the young person, and even the campus police, and it was basically a safety plan if that child had a meltdown. And last I heard, that child had successfully completed college. So there still can have behavior plans follow on. Where they're at in independent living skills. Do they have the independent living skills, self-care, leisure skills, those sort of things, and what you know as far as the data? Can they access their environment? Are they fully mobile in their environment? Self-determination, self-advocacy skills. Can they speak up for themselves? Do they know how? Even on a campus, like Connections Academy, you could still have them learning self-determination, self-advocacy skills, because they have to contact the teacher somehow if they have a question. Career, vocational transition, employment. What are their interests? Have they gotten to have some time to look at career interests and those sort of things? and additional important considerations that can assist. All those areas need to be checked. If there are no accommodations needed, just put that there are no accommodations needed for that area. All right, part 4 is recommendations to assist the student in meeting their post-secondary goals. This is your opinion as a teacher, what they will need to help them succeed after they graduate high school. In higher education, career tech education, in employment, in independent living, and in community participation. The only thing I'm going to say here is we tend to ask you to stay away from brand names. Hopefully you're all aware of Dragon Naturally Speaking, the #1 voice-to-text software. If you put for them to succeed in higher education, they're going to need Dragon Naturally Speaking. A few months later, a child goes off to college. The college disability support gets a call from mama saying, how come you didn't give them this program? Mrs. Smith in high school said they would get it. And then the college has to explain they don't use that. They use a different program, and there are many other programs out there. Actually, the new Windows 10 voice-to-text works pretty well, and Google's does too. So the colleges may provide a different program. You know, to say they're going to need don't say they need a Texas Instruments TI-85II Gold version for a calculator. Say something, just need a calculator to succeed in math. So I know with both of my daughters, we had to buy dumber calculators when they went to college because their calculators, I guess, were too smart for calculus. I never did figure that one out. What they might need in employment, what they might need in independent living. For community participation, if they don't have a driver's license, there's something they might need is transportation or a driver's license. And I guarantee across the state of Arkansas, transportation is an issue. Because if you don't have a license, Uber doesn't go out, at least to my house in Mountain Bird. Uber does not attend to there, and a lot of other places. So go through that. Whatever your recommendations are, if you think they're going to need something to be successful once they get past school. Now this last section is student input. It says highly recommended. I'm going to tell you, yes, you're going to want the student's input. Covers those 5 different areas. How does your disability affect your schoolwork and school activities? In the past, what support's been tried by teachers or by you to help you succeed in school? What accommodation supports work best, which didn't, and what strengths and needs should professionals know about you as you enter the post-secondary education or work environment? Now, I'm going to have 2 words, writing prompt. So if you're teaching English, here's nice little writing prompts you can have the student work on and come up with their best answer. I will say we're not grading their work. Nobody is grading the work they do. So if you need to answer, because I guarantee a lot of your students will not know what a support is, and you'll need to explain to them that what you're doing to help support them, or what's an accommodation, and that also helps students understand those terms and look at that. But I have a number of teachers that the more we do this, like the idea of doing these as writing prompts and having the student have their best work show up on the final paper. The student can handwrite it in there, but if you have the physical copy, I guarantee unless the child can write super teeny tiny, they're not going to put more than about a sentence in that slot. You can have the student type it in there and give them access to it. You can have the student send type it on a separate paper and send it. I think attach it to it would be fine. But it does need to be the student's input. The only thing I might say, if you are transcribing for a student, if you had a student that for some reason was not able to type it in themselves, I would probably just put a note on the bottom corner that said transcribed by Mrs. Smith on such and such a date, just to show that it's still the student's input, because we do want to make sure they have a chance to say that. And I like the question E, strengths and needs should professionals know. We talk a lot about needs, but I think that's a great time to focus on the strengths the student has. And all of our students do have strengths and are capable of doing some good things. So then his final thing is I review and agree with the content of the summary performance. Student gets to sign it, fill in the date, hand the copy with all that test stuff to the student, and put the copy of the summary performance in the file.